Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here. This session is the Real-Time Crime Index with Jeff Asher presenting. So without further ado, Jeff, turn it over to you.
Thank you. Hey everybody, good afternoon. My name is Jeff Asher. I am presenting on the Real-Time Crime Index. I'm the co-founder of Agency Analytics. We're a consulting company based in New Orleans, where we have employees all over the country. We primarily do data analytics for criminal justice agencies. Not just that, we work in education, we work in tourism groups, but for the most part we work with police departments, prosecutor agencies, and other organizations that are trying to improve the public good. We give data analytics help. What I'm presenting on today is a project that we just launched 2 weeks ago, called the Real-Time Crime Index. And it's really exciting because I pitched this, you fill out the form to present about something months ago, and we kind of had a general timeline that we were hoping by around Labor Day, but you have no idea if you're still going to be just presenting on slides. You're going to be actually able to show a real live product when you do this thing. And so it's very exciting to have put up a lot of, hey, we're going to have this thing done several months ago, and we actually have the thing done. So I'm very excited to be able to present this to you all. I want to start though by talking about why we need this information. So I'm going to start, hopefully, with a quiz. Everybody loves quizzes, right? This is open books, so if you need to use your phone, great. If not, if you can recite these from memory, great. Whoever gets their hand up and answers first, wins. So there's no actual prize. So first question is, who won the World Series last year?
The Rangers.
The Rangers, yes. All right, you get 1 point. Congratulations. Second question is, how many wins do the Mets have this year? Y'all beat my Nationals last night, but you can shout out any answer. I don't actually know. 81? That sounds about right, I think. 82? We have an 82 and 81. It's one of those numbers. We have a good idea of how many wins the Mets have, about 80-ish. All right, third question. So we've got, we've got 1 point for 3 people, we'll say. How many murders were there in the United States last year? So number one, we were able to say pretty easily, the Rangers. Some of you started to take out the phone. Somebody knew it from memory. Number two, we had a pretty good guess, and if we wanted to throw up the MLB app, we could pull that down and say exactly how many wins the Mets have this year. Number three, we can't say. It is almost late September. We're like 3 days away from when I would define as late September of 2024. And we still do not have the data to say how many murders there were last year in the United States. We can't, from the official data, even estimate exactly how many murders there were in the United States last year. We're still waiting for the FBI to come out with its official data. I was actually very nervous about this because the FBI was saying that they were going to release it last Monday, and then they postponed it by a week, so I can still have this talking point. But either way, it is 9 months into 2024, and we can't say. We can say very quickly how well everything is happening on a baseball field. You can instantaneously say how fast a ball exited the bat of a hitter when he hit a home run to left field, and you can say the launch angle, and you can say what the pitch was and exactly where it was located. All of these things you can do instantaneously. How many murders there were in the United States, something really important like that, we can't say. And that is a real problem because we want to know, one, what are our trends? We want to know the base level that we're talking about, and we want to understand that at its most basic level, is what we're doing working? Are we seeing declines? Or are we seeing major increases or minor increases that we need to respond to? And this is a problem across the board. It's certainly a problem for police leadership, for analysts, for people walking the beat and your police officer on the streets. It's a problem for policymakers, your city leadership. It's a problem for state leadership. It's a problem for our federal leadership. These are things that we should be able to answer, and we can't. And this is really the impetus of the Real-Time Crime Index. The goal of the project is not necessarily to say there were 19,432 murders last year, but to be able to understand what the trends are as they develop without having to wait 9-10 months to understand what the official data was, because by the time we get 2023 data, if you told me tomorrow how many murders there were last year, that doesn't really matter, because what I really care about right now is how many murders were there in 2024 so far. And so the goal of this project is essentially to take out some of the precision that the FBI is working with in terms of they're going to present a precise number of estimated murders. It's still going to be an estimate, but it's going to be a very precise number. We're going to say that there's value in being accurate, even if we can't say with precision exactly what that number is. So here's the team, myself here. Dave, unfortunately, who's the project manager on this project, has a bad back and he couldn't stand. So he actually lives in Buffalo, so I'm in New Orleans. And Dave is like 4 hours away but couldn't make it, so I apologize for that. And then we have Katie and Oscar, who are actually in Vegas right now, hopefully working at the IACA, the Crime Analyst Conference down there. So before I actually show it and talk about what it actually looks like, I do want to give this is the thing that I designed in MS Paint about 9 months ago. You saw the team. When you see how good, I think it looks really nice. I think it's really pretty, and I think it tells the stories that we want to be able to tell very nicely. This is what they were working with, this vision. I'm proud of this because, one, this is the best art I can do, but also because a lot of the things that are on here actually show up in the final version. But the final version looks a lot prettier and has a lot better functionality than I think I had envisioned when developing this in MS Paint. So, the Real-Time Crime Index, the goal is to show national crime trends. As a result, you can also show local crime trends of the cities that we're able to get data for, but the goal is to be able to see national crime trends with as little delay as possible. And so we've had a lot of discussions about what does as little delay as possible actually mean. For us, we think it's about a month and a half. And the reason for that is you'll see we're getting a lot of our data straight from state UCR programs, either state UCR programs that are sending it straight to us, or state UCR programs that are publishing it and we just grab it. And what we've noticed is with a lot of agencies, if they're providing their data, let's say they report their August data on September 3rd, great, they've done that. But when they report their August data, it's not quite complete. They've completed their July data, but their August data is maybe missing the 28th, 29th, and 30th, and 31st of August, or it's this slow progression where you've got like 6 incidents on August 31st compared to 1,000 incidents a day on August 1st. So because of that, what we don't want to do is to provide a product which always looks like crime is plummeting because we're undercounting severely the most recent data. So we give that extra month of lag. It allows us to collect more agencies and it also allows us to be more precise in exactly what we're showing for our sample. We're getting data directly from agencies, either agencies that are publishing on their websites, great, we'll go out and grab it. We're getting it from agencies that aren't publishing it, but are just sending us either their Return A or their Group A offense report for NIBRs. So just the basic crime counts that you're getting, you're either publishing it or sending it straight to us, and we're able to use that. We're getting it, as I mentioned, from state UCR programs, and we're getting it both in terms of publicly available state UCR programs and state UCR programs that are sending us the data as we ask for it. We're standardizing the data to UCR Part 1 SRS standards. I know a lot of you might be NIBRs. Not everybody is NIBRs compliant. And I think that SRS is easier because it's when the public thinks about it, they tend to think about crime in terms of SRS, the 7 major crime categories, because actually counts arson. But also because if we want to go back, and part of our goal is to go back as far as possible. Right now we're going back to 2018. A lot of these agencies weren't NIBRs compliant, so if we're using just the NIBRs data, it makes it much harder to see the national trends. And the other thing that we're doing, some of you may be aware, we have a year-to-date murder dashboard. We have data from, I think, 270 agencies up there, and it's just Washington, D.C. publishes every day. We grab their murder number every day, and we say they have 190 murders last year through September 15th. They're at 132 this year through September 15th, and that's the number. We're not standardizing the date, and so you're not able to see a trend over time because we have some agencies that have data through May and some agencies that have data through yesterday. This project we're standardizing with a month-and-a-half lag so that you can actually see number of estimated offenses, or number of offenses in this sample each month as we go on. And the sample will change a bit. On Thursday, we're going to publish our July figures. So, and I think we're right now at 305 agencies. 22 of the agencies that we had in the June sample, we couldn't get July data for, but we got 11 different agencies that didn't have previous data that we were able to add. So the sample is going to change. It's mostly with small agencies that Westminster, California didn't publish their July data. It's not up there. We're hoping in August they publish, or in October they publish their data and we're able to catch up. But the sample's going to change a little bit, but that's pretty much where we're at. So the RTCI, this is one of two what I call our CYA slides, built by us at AH Datalytics with generous support from Arnold Ventures. So there's just philanthropy money. This is a free service. It is not being, there's no subscription required. There's no payments that we're getting. This is not a commercial venture for us to to sell the product to anyone. The goal here is that this is something that we need to be able to do, and so we have philanthropic dollars that are helping us to produce it. This is preliminary, unofficial data. The data changes. If an agency, and this happens frequently, especially with the state UCR agencies, an agency may report 76 auto thefts in March of 2024, and then we go back and we update it the next month, and it's 78 auto thefts. That's a very tiny change. It's, not every agency is going to have a change, but it does mean that the data is not official, and it's not official until essentially the FBI publishes it 9 months after. What it is, though, is it's able to accurately identify crime trends. We need to not think about crime data in terms of precision, because even with the crime data that you're reporting, we know that there's lots of crime that does not get reported to the police. National Crime Victimization Survey clearly shows that. So even our reported numbers are not precise to the number of crimes. We shouldn't worry so much about precision. We should think about this in terms of accuracy. It is designed not to replace anything that anyone is doing. The goal is to help to build an accurate picture of just what is happening in terms of our crime trends without being solely reliant on waiting for 9 months to pass. So this, the RTCI, along with what the FBI is doing in terms of quarterly data, the end of year FBI data, the murder data that the homicide data that the CDC is publishing, places like the Council on Criminal Justice, NORC has a live crime tracker, Major City Chiefs has their quarterly data, the Gun Violence Archive. These are all places that we can turn to, really like never before, to gain an accurate understanding of what's happening in terms of our crime trends. And then it's evolving and improving. The version that I'll show you now is the least sophisticated version that we will have. It's a 3-year grant. We want to add features. We've already added features in the last 2 weeks since we launched. We want to continue to grow this project and to incorporate feedback and to make it the best product that it can be. It is not final official crime estimates. It is not a precise measure of crime counts, as I mentioned. It is not inherently going to exactly match what is being reported elsewhere. Part of that is that some agencies, Dallas comes to mind, Dallas reports some numbers on their website and then reports different numbers to the state UCR program. We're pulling data from the Texas State UCR program, so the Dallas numbers, those are the numbers that are going up to the FBI, those are the numbers that we're going to use. In other cases, an agency might report its numbers and it might not update that PDF that it reported in June, but when it sends it up to the FBI, the number has been updated, and so it's a little bit different. We're not worrying about those little differences because we know that they're going to exist, and we don't want to let better be the enemy of good enough. And then, of course, we're only looking at reported crimes. We're clear and upfront about that. We are not able to capture crimes that are not reported to the police. I think that's sort of a given with everybody, but it's also something that you kind of get the tisk, you got to worry about unreported crimes. We can't do that. There's no way to show what those numbers are except for what BJS is doing within CPS. What it does, and what we think it's doing really well, is showing crime trends. And so here's just an example. Obviously, we're still waiting on the FBI data, but we took what the RTCI was doing in our sample of cities on the left, is showing murders rolling over 12 months in the RTCI. On the right is homicides rolling over 12 months in the CDC. And what you see is pretty much identical lines. Maybe some slight variations, but you're essentially seeing it again. The y-axes are different because they're dealing with a lot more homicides nationally than we are in just this sample. But we're showing a nearly identical trend. And that gives me a lot of confidence that the trends we're looking at in our murder data, well beyond where the CDC is looking, well beyond where the FBI or anyone else is reporting now, are accurately showing what these trends look like. So our sample right now, we currently have, I believe, 358 agencies covering over 82 million people with data. It's about a quarter of the US population. A better way to think of it, though, is that it's about 45%, I need to up that number, it's about 45% of the US murders that happen in 2022 we have within our sample, because obviously murder is more concentrated in cities than in the rest of the country. We have data from 29 of the 30 biggest cities in the US. We don't have Oklahoma City, so if any of you have friends there and want to come our way, I'd love to talk to them. But we have at least murder data from 29 of the top 30 cities. Los Angeles being the biggest one that we only have murder data. They're sending it to us, but they've had a nightmare time, I think, transitioning to NIBRs, and so it's made the rest of their data a little iffy. So as you can see, we're capturing a lot of the country from 350 cities of data. As far as the current data, so this is cities that have every month of data from January 2017 through June 2024, we have 305 cities covering about 76 million people. When we update in our July numbers, I think that number will fall to about 295 cities and 75 million people. So it's a handful of smaller cities that we lost data for July, or don't have data yet for July. What we'll probably do is in like a week and a half, we'll go back to those 20 or so cities that we didn't have July data for, and we'll look again. And if we're able to add them, we'll amend it so that this is an ever-evolving and ever-increasing sample. This is where we're getting our data. About 80% of our data is coming from state UCR programs. About 22 agencies were going out, and their RMSs are publicly available, and so we're downloading the data and matching it to SRS categories. And about 50 agencies are aggregated. Either they're sending it to us, the aggregated data directly, or they're posting it on their website and making it publicly available in that way, and then we just grab that. We have data from all 10 of the cities of 1 million or more, though San Jose is not publishing up to date, so they only have through June, so they're not in the big picture sample. We've got about 61, I think, out of the 80-ish, 70-ish, cities of 250,000 to 999,999. 999,999. So we're doing well on that. We're doing, the majority of our cities are smaller cities, but there's 19,000 agencies nationwide. Most of them are really small agencies. So we're not hitting necessarily, we have a lot more of the smaller cities, but we're not hitting in terms of the percent of the total of the smaller cities that we are on the bigger cities. As you can see, 100% of the 1 million plus, around 75% of the next category, and then it goes down from slightly less than half of the cities that are 100,000 to 250,000, and then less than 40% of the cities that are between 50,000 and 100,000. Our cutoff is 50,000 or more. The reason for that being that if you have every city that's 50,000 or up, that's like 830-ish cities, give or take. And if you have data from the top 500 cities in the country, your predicted value in terms of the crime trend change in those cities is usually within about 1 percentage point of where it is when the FBI comes out. So really, really good. If you're at where we're now, you're looking at like 2 percentage points. If you're at where kind of Council on Criminal Justice, major city chiefs come out with their quarterly data with 30 to 70 cities, you're probably looking at 3 to 4 percentage points. If you add another 500 cities, so you go from 500 to 1,000 cities, you're looking at your accuracy going from about 1 percentage point to about 3/4 of 1 percentage point. So there's not a ton of value in adding all of these small cities below 50,000. there's a high crime city that has data available that adds a large share of the overall crimes that are occurring nationally, because that's really our goal, is to get as much of that from as few cities as possible. If we're able to get smaller cities that really add value, we're certainly open to that. But for the most part, we're just looking at 50,000 or more. So what our TCI shows, this is what it shows. Murder was down about 10 to 11% last year. Violent crime was down about 2.5%, and property crime was up slightly, about even 0.2%. I would point obviously the murder figure, if that's accurate or near accurate, would be the largest ever recorded. The previous largest one-year change in murder nationally was 9.1% in 1996. So it doesn't compare to the 30% increase in murder in 2020, but it's certainly a very, very positive trend. I would turn your attention here to the motor vehicle thefts, up 25.6%, and then the robbery down negative 0.5%. I think those are the two outliers, and I'll talk about this in a minute, but part of our goal, once we've published this, is to figure out how to professionalize this. How do we take this and say, if you had this sample of cities, can you put error bars on exactly what that means for the national trend? How can you say, basically use this data to predict exactly what the FBI is going to say when it releases its data 12 months from now? This year, this is through June, the July numbers are almost identical, but murder's down 15.7%. When we release the July numbers, I think murder's down like 16.8%, so that trend is appearing to accelerate. Obviously, that will replace last year's decline as the largest one-year decline ever recorded. Violent crime is down 5%, property crime is down 8.8%. One of the new features that we've added is the ability to break it down by population type. So cities of 50 to 100,000, cities of 1 million or more, so forth. And what we see, and I think that this is important for hopefully better understanding exactly what we expect to see when the FBI releases its data, and to turn this not just from a collection of random data sets where you can look up your city, but to an actually useful analytic tool, both locally and nationally. And so if you break down by big cities, 250,000 or more, little cities under 250,000, last year is the table on the left. So what you see is that there's a big difference between robbery in smaller cities, minus 5%, and bigger cities, plus 0.3%. This is largely because DC and Chicago had enormous increases in robberies last year. And because we're relying on mostly larger cities here, we're oversampling to the point where a city like DC having a 70% increase in robbery, that is not what we see nationally, is probably affecting our trend a little bit. So I would probably err on the side that our violent crime number, minus 2.5%, is probably a little low, because the robbery decline that we see is much more, or there's more of a decline than what we actually see in the data from the bigger cities. The other thing that I think is really interesting is the auto theft number. It was up 8% in cities under 250,000, and it was up 30% in cities of 250,000 or more. So property crime was up 0.2% in our sample. This difference suggests that we're probably overstating the decline, overstating an increase, and there was probably a small decline in the property crimes. So that's what I think that this tells us about what the FBI is going to report when it comes out with its official report. On the right, you see not really those problems persisting. The numbers line up much closer between the big cities and the small cities. And what's really interesting is we talked about that 17% decline in auto theft. That's 16.9% in small cities, 17.1% in big cities. So whereas last year, huge surge in auto thefts nationally in big cities, not so much, sizable increase, but not quite as big in smaller cities. Now you're seeing a decline across both of them, which I find to be very interesting. So what is next? It's an evolving process. We are adding agencies as best we can. Our goal is 500 to 1,000 agencies. The goal is basically every city of 50,000 or more to have data from. We want to expand the so what does it mean? What can agencies do about about understanding the crime trends. How can you understand the national crime trends? How can we make this something that produces a report like what BLS does with employment? I know we're a small team of people working on this, but this is data that is out there and available, and how can we make this as useful as possible to as wide an audience as possible? We want to look at new topic areas once we do sort of that SRS crime types. We want to expand to NIBRs. We want to do shooting data, clearance data, carjacking, staffing, really anything that's being produced. Anything that the FBI is going to report on a year from now, we want to be able to have some understanding of what those trends are as they develop. And then we want to incorporate feedback. I love having feedback. I love random suggestions. Sometimes they're not so good. Sometimes they're brilliant. And so we want to take advantage of the brilliant ones as best we can and incorporate and change. This is not the final product that I'm going to show you. It's the first version of the product, version 1.0, that's going to go, hopefully, and grow and become even cooler and more useful. We do need help. I'm here, I'm excited to talk to you guys. It's also a plea for data. We only have, I believe, 4 of the 29 cities in New York that are 50,000 or more in our data set. New York is doing a lot better than Florida, where we only have 1 agency, but for the most part, we need data from cities. Finding data that's publicly available and finding data that we can gather back to whatever time frame we're using. In this case, we need data back to 2017 so that we can build 12-month rolling averages for each agency. So if you represent a state or an agency, or you know somebody that might be willing to participate, we would love to chat with them. Here's my contact info, if you're interested. And with that, I'm going to show the thing. So, that, I'm going to end the slideshow. There we go. All right. So this is it, realtimecrimeindex.com, all one word. And this is kind of like, if you haven't told by now, I've been here 30 minutes, you can probably tell that I'm slightly nerdy. I compared this to when the astronomers took a picture of the black hole, and they were like, well, we kind of knew what the black hole looked like, but now we have an actual picture of what this thing looks like. It's only slight hyperbole, but this is the national murder trend. This is what the national murder trend looks like rolling over 12 months. From our sample of 76 million people. The exact numbers, I don't know how many murders nationally there were each month last year or this year, but through June of this year, I can tell you that this is the shape of the trend. So what you can do with the RTCI is you can take it, whatever crime you're interested in, if you want to look at violent crimes, murder, property crimes, all of that, you can do that. You can break it down nationwide, or you can look at individual agencies, whatever agency we have data for. Nationwide, you can take the full sample, or you can look at, let's say I just want to see big cities of 1 million or more, and you can break it down there. And then you can also take the 12-month rolling sum, which is sort of the default. I think this is my preferred way of looking at crime data, because I'm in New Orleans. It was 90 degrees yesterday. It's going to be like 95 degrees tomorrow. This is incredible weather to be able to walk in, although I don't know what these hills are. But you have a lot, here you've got seasonality that we don't have down south. So if you only look at monthly, you're missing that entire seasonality. By doing a 12-month rolling sum, where each month is the total of the 12 months that came with it, you basically eliminate any seasonality effect, and you show the actual trends as they're developing. But you do have the ability, if you want to break it down monthly, and you can see the trends here. You can see the summer of 2020, that big spike, and then the slow and gradual decline over the last 4 years. You can also download, if you're interested, you can download the data set, quick CSV of what you've made. You can also download a graph here, and it'll give you this exact picture so that you can, writing a story or doing whatever, you can have the actual picture. Lots of analysis you can do just from looking at these things. My favorite is the vehicle theft. Let's see, Philly is the place that I tend to look at. If you recall, there was a video on TikTok in the summer of 2022 showing people how to steal certain models of Kias and Hyundais. And then this is what you get in Philly, which is summer of 2022, enormous increase. You see this across a lot of people, across a lot of places. So you've got that increase, and then very interestingly, we sort of hit a peak sometime in 2023 or the very first parts of 2024, and now we're starting to see a sizable decline in motor vehicle thefts. I'm guessing all of the Kias and Hyundais have been stolen. No? There's still more? All right, good news, everybody. You can look at, I'm in New Orleans, I don't like hurricanes per se, but I like this graphic. We had Hurricane Ida at the end of August in 2021. And you can see here we had an enormous spike. It ended up being an enormous spike in business burglaries right here, right after the storm. And you can see that increase. It's the type of thing that I think is helpful for a policymaker to, one, why did we have this spike in business burglaries? Was that real, or did a whole bunch of business alarms go off and we reported them as actual business burglaries? And two, if you're dealing with explaining why was there a 30% increase in burglaries in your city, you can point to this one event and clearly see the data there. You can also see, my one Florida agency, the effect of COVID on thefts in Miami Beach, Florida. See right here, you've got thefts here, and then all the tourists are gone, and so you can't have thefts when all the tourists are gone, and they've started to come back, and now they're back at the same level. There are 4, I believe, New York agencies. So we have Buffalo, Mount Vernon, New York, and Rochester, New York City. So you can see all of these crime trends. I like the Buffalo crime trend, the murder trend, because you saw the same increase that you saw pretty much everywhere else in Buffalo as pretty much was occurring nationally starting in 2020, but there's been this steady decline in murders in Buffalo. And yes, you're up 25%, but that's 4 different murders, and it's after a dramatic decline over the last few years. You can compare this with other data, like from the GIV shooting data, and you can see the exact same thing happening in shootings in Buffalo over time. So it's a good thing to be able to point out. There's also tables. We want to make the data as accessible as possible. You can get the full sample, or if you're only interested in one agency, you want Rochester's data for each month, you can do that, and you can download all this in a handy spreadsheet, and it has all of the data that we've got gathered on Rochester back to January of 2018. You can also see year-to-date totals for agencies, all of the agencies in our sample. This is all of them. You can see, where is it? So like El Paso, Texas, they stopped reporting data to the Texas State UCR program in March. We still have their number of incidents here, El Paso, 4 year-to-date, 6 previous year-to-date, but they only have data through March. So you can see that this is not the full sample. They do not have all of the data. If you were to go to graph El Paso's data, you'd see it stops in March 2024. The other thing that I really like about this is if you want to know what our source is on Buffalo, you can click there, and it will bring you straight to the Buffalo page where they are reporting this. And so you can see Buffalo is doing a great job. They're ahead of the game, so that we already have their August data that we can add for when we're doing our August update a month from now. You can do that for every agency that you might be interested in. We have a lot of disclaimer that talk about how the stats should be used in terms of what we're gathering, what we're showing, critically what we're not showing, and how people might want to think about this information. We're also explaining several times that we have built a tool that people are going to compare. I know that people are going to come out and they're going to say, I want to see New Orleans compared to Baton Rouge. That's the thing that I care about. For a variety of reasons, that's typically not a good idea with crime data. The FBI has a very clear warning, and we're actually quoting the FBI's warning that caution against comparing. You can see there's no per capita. We have not added that feature, and that's a intentional effort on our part to do as little as possible to encouraging comparisons. If you add per capita, you immediately say you can show, I want to see Boston compared to New York, that's great, but the data sources don't inherently line up one-to-one between city to city, especially if we're taking data from one city's RMS and we're comparing that to what's being reported in an agency's website to what's being reported to a state UCR program. There's also a couple of agencies, Washington, D.C. probably being the most egregious. D.C. is reporting aggravated assault with a weapon. So it's like 60 to 70% of their overall aggravated assaults. They're doing it consistently over time, so we're able to show aggravated assaults in D.C. over time. But if you were to want to compare the per capita aggravated assaults in D.C. to the per capita aggravated assaults in San Diego, you wouldn't necessarily be comparing apples to apples. So we've been very specific about not wanting to encourage comparisons as best we can, even though we've made a tool that we know if people want to do comparisons, they're going to go out and do comparisons. We've got a lengthy methodology section that talks about everything that we're doing, and then we've got here a sourcing table that helps you to figure out each agency. Here's Albany, Georgia. Don't have Albany, New York, unfortunately, but here's Albany, Georgia. See population coming from the FBI data from 2022, where we're getting the data, they're aggregating it. It's open source, so it's just sitting on their website, and then you've got a link here. And then the last thing I'll talk about, second last thing I'll talk about is you can see all of our code here. You can download the full data set here. We do want this to be as open and transparent as possible. This is designed for people to be able to access it. It's also designed for, if there are issues, people to be able to find them and bring them to our attention. And then finally, if you do work for an agency and you want to submit data, we'd love to work with you. And we've made it easy where you can just upload it here through this portal, and you drop a file in here, a PDF or a spreadsheet or a CSV, and it will go straight to us, and we'll be able to add it to our collection. So I did want to leave time. I don't know if there are any questions, but that's the basics of the presentation, and happy to answer any questions that there might be. Yeah?
I'm just curious, the FBI seems to be moving more towards posting data quicker. How do you envision this, do you envision this being a complement to that as they get faster, or adding some sort of different value the FBI might be doing?
Yeah, 100% complementary. And we've worked with FBI, we've briefed FBI and talked to them from the beginning on this. They've been extremely supportive. Because we're a private endeavor, they can't come out and endorse it, but we hope that they don't see this as in any way a competition. Same thing with BJS. We've had them in discussions with them since we began. The way that I see this, one, it's 100% complementary because it helps to, from an independent source, verify what the FBI is reporting. I'm also, if you've really dug into the FBI quarterly data, you'll know that there's some issues that they aren't, because we're doing an audit process, if agencies are not submitting data, if the data doesn't look right, we're not including it in a way that I don't think that the FBI is necessarily doing, that this provides another set of eyes, and it provides potentially a more accurate source, because the FBI, with their quarterly data, they're just getting it and publishing it. And there's advantages to that, and the speed is an advantage. I know that they eventually hope to go to monthly, and that would solve a lot of our problems, because then we've got, obviously we have to audit it, we have to figure out if the data is accurate. There's a lot of questions there, but if they go to monthly, that fills in the extra 200 agencies that we've been looking for. This graph is not how the FBI does data. If you've ever used the CDE, you need a PhD to be able to figure it out. And this is hopefully as user-friendly and intuitive as possible. And so we think that looking at it this way is easier for a lot of people, and will present the trends in a way that make a lot more sense, while the FBI is also providing the data in the way that, and doing the thing that the FBI does well. So we hope that they're very complementary to each other. Yes?
Can you talk a little bit about the measures you're using to examine data quality, consistency, or fuzziness?
Yeah. So Andy Wheeler is a well-known crime analyst, and he's developed an algorithm for us which basically identifies agencies that we need to take a closer look at. Because we're fortunate we're at 300 agencies, so we're not looking at 18,000 agencies. We can do a lot of manual auditing in terms of looking at actual data and determining whether or not the reporting makes sense. Columbus, Ohio, I think is a great example. We're getting data straight from the Ohio State UCR program, and so they're sending us all of the cities of 50,000 or more. Columbus, they sent us, and Columbus is showing like a 70% decline across the board in every type of crime. And so we saw that, and immediately it popped out, and you can see it in the graph. Starting December 2023, there's just a plunge of crime, and it's every type of crime, and it's immediately comes across as this is a data reporting issue. This is not the city itself. This is not the actual crime trends. So if you go to Columbus, we have pulled their data from the RTCI with the exception of murder, because their murder data they're reporting separately on their website. So we're pulling that from their website, whereas other forms of crime, they're like thefts, we're not reporting it. And we have the data that they're reporting to the Ohio State UCR program, but we're not comfortable with it. We're actually meeting with Columbus, I think, next week to talk and see if there's, because I know that they're dealing with a data reporting issue on their end up to Ohio version. Yes?
You showed comparisons for the 22 to 23, and that was using all RTCI data, right?
Yes.
Do you have any comparisons of what your data or your estimates look like compared to the UCR estimates from 2022? Or what you have, so basically the data that the FBI's already posted, how do you estimates compare?
I don't have that table. We can compare their fourth quarter quarterly data that they produced in March of this year. I don't have that with me. I think that what our numbers show is that the FBI quarterly data probably is overstating the decline. We show very similar. So they have a 13.2% decline in murder. We have a 10.7% decline. Their violent crime decline, I think, is 4 or 5%. They have a 3 or 4% decline in property crime. So I think that speaks to, hopefully it speaks to the quality of what we're doing. What we will probably do is when they come out with their 2023 numbers, we'll do basically an audit, how did we do in 2023, and show that change. But since we don't have those numbers just yet, all we can look at is the quarterly data. I do think it helps to give some insights into what the quarterly data is showing, but that's sort of like very wonkish, and I don't know that there's a ton of value until we get the firm numbers and the firm estimates. Or it's going to show something completely different, and I'm going to be terrified. So
I was just interested, with having the smaller sample, like you're saying, to increase the sampling precision, not that much, but how much you're saying tracks, but
I'm very hopeful that it's close. So when we briefed the FBI team on this like 2 weeks ago, and they said they seemed to say that it gave them comfort. So I'm very hopeful that our numbers are very close to what their numbers are. If not, it'll be the last time you hear from me. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you all very much. This is a plea for help. So if you know somebody, you want to send them my way, please do. Here again is my email address. Would love to chat and hopefully continue to improve this product. So thank you all very much.